My sister took over our mom's estate while I was grieving. I thought it was just business, until I got a call from the bank asking about a withdrawal I never made. That's when I found out she'd been posing as me for months and draining everything. When our mom passed, it wasn't sudden, but it still felt like the ground dropped out from under me. Cancer had been eating at her for almost 2 years, but she stayed strong until the very end. She left behind a modest estate. The house, some savings, a few small investments. Nothing extravagant, but it was hers. My sister, Lauren, was always the more together one. She was the one who handled things, planned ahead, knew who to call. So when she offered to handle the estate paperwork, I didn't question it. I was barely holding it together emotionally, and honestly, I was grateful she stepped up. We agreed on everything early on. We'd split everything 50-50ths, just like Mom had intended.
No lawyers, no drama.
Just siblings trying to do the right thing. For a while, it seemed like she was handling everything perfectly. But then I started getting calls. First, it was a voicemail from the bank, asking me to confirm a $9,000 withdrawal. Then an email from a brokerage account I'd never logged into, notifying me of a password change. At first, I chalked it up to glitches or maybe someone trying to hack Mom's old accounts. But then I checked one of the joint accounts we had access to, and it was empty. I called Lauren the moment I saw the balance. It rang twice before going to voicemail. I tried again, same thing. No text, no reply. And that was weird. She always answered, especially if it was about Mom's stuff. I sat there staring at the screen, heart racing, wondering if I was overreacting. But something in my gut twisted. So I called the bank. I explained who I was, gave the account info, and asked about the recent transactions. The woman on the other end hesitated. "Sir, I see that someone logged in and made a series of transfers over the last 3 weeks. But those were confirmed with ID, government issued." "Whose ID?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Yours," she said. Photo matched. I hung up without saying thank you, because I knew exactly what had happened. Lauren had access to a scan of my driver's license. We both used it to verify things while handling Mom's documents remotely. I trusted her. We'd shared everything growing up. But now she'd used me to steal from both of us. I didn't go to the police. Not yet. Instead, I drove straight to her house. Her car was out front, lights on. She answered the door like she was expecting someone else. When she saw me, her face dropped. Not with guilt, with fear. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I just stepped inside, uninvited, and held up my phone with the account screenshot. Her eyes locked on the zero balance, and her breath hitched like she'd been caught mid-fall. "How long?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Lauren," I said, quieter this time. "How long have you been stealing from me?" She sat down at the kitchen table, slow and heavy, like her body had finally given up the lie. "Since the first check cleared," she whispered. 3 months.
Is there here?
"Why?" She ran her hands through her hair, looking everywhere but at me. "Because I thought Mom would have wanted me to have more. I took care of her. I drove her to chemo. I handled the bills. You flew in once a month, dropped off flowers, and left." I stepped back, like her words had slapped me. "You think that justifies fraud?" She didn't deny it. "I was tired of always being the responsible one and ending up with nothing. You got to keep your life." I put mine on hold. I let that hang in the air. Then I said, "You didn't put your life on hold. You made a choice. And now you're going to fix it." Her jaw clenched. "And if I don't?" "Then I press charges," I said. "And I send the email I already drafted to every relative who still thinks you're the golden child." Silence. Long. Sharp. Ugly. Then, for the first time in years, I saw her cry. But this time, I didn't feel sorry. The next morning, I got an alert from the bank. A deposit had been made, partial repayment. $15,000. No note.
No apology.
Just numbers on a screen. The account was still far from where it had been, but it was a start. Later that day, Lauren called. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Her voice was calm, flat. "I'm going to sell Mom's car," she said. "And my watch. The one Dad gave me. I'll pay back everything. You won't have to call the police. I hope one day you'll understand." I didn't reply, because there wasn't anything to say. Understanding isn't the same as forgiveness. And forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. She made a choice, and now she was living with it, just like I was living with the hole it left behind. I changed all my passwords, flagged every account she ever touched, cut her off from everything tied to me or Mom's estate. But I didn't out her to the rest of the family. Not yet. Maybe because I knew the shame she was already feeling would be worse than anything they could throw at her. Or maybe because I didn't want to be like her. Revenge wasn't the point. Protecting what little peace I had left was, and that peace came quietly a few weeks later, when the final deposit hit the account. No more money missing. No more debt hanging in the air like static. Just the truth. And the space that came after. A month passed before I saw her again. It was at our cousin's baby shower. One of those events no one really wants to go to but shows up for out of obligation and guilt. I hadn't planned on attending, but when I got the invite, something told me to show up. Maybe to prove I could. Maybe to remind myself I didn't owe anyone an explanation for being there. Lauren was already inside when I arrived. She was standing near the window, talking to an aunt who didn't know anything. Smiling like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't tried to erase me with a forged signature and a silent transfer. When she finally saw me, her expression cracked. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Just the slightest flicker of guilt in her eyes. I didn't look away. I walked past her. Didn't nod, didn't stop. I could feel her watching me, probably wondering if today would be the day I told everyone. If I'd stand up in front of the gift table and say, "Hey, remember when Lauren emptied Mom's account behind my back?" But I didn't. I sat down, made small talk, passed around cupcakes. Because that's the kind of peace I'd chosen, not passive, not weak. Just quiet. The kind of peace that lets her carry the weight, and lets me move on. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. I started sleeping better. Not because everything was perfect, far from it, but because the knots in my chest started to loosen. The kind of knots you don't realize you've been carrying for years. Ones tied up in old family roles, unspoken expectations, and pretending things were okay just to keep the peace. Turns out, the real peace didn't come from pretending. Came from knowing where I stood and finally being okay with it. I stopped waiting for an apology that would never come. Stopped rereading the emails and messages that made me question whether I had overreacted. I hadn't, and I didn't need her acknowledgement to validate the damage. I took time to clean out Mom's house, slowly on my own terms. I found old letters she wrote, photos I'd never seen, little notes in the margins of her cookbooks. Things Lauren had probably overlooked in her rush to take everything that looked valuable. But what mattered most was still there. Things Lauren couldn't forge or withdraw. Things like the memory of Mom singing while doing dishes, or how she used to tuck a piece of chocolate in my coat pocket before school on cold days, or the way she squeezed my hand, gently but twice, when words failed her near the end. Our quiet code for "I love you," and I realized something: some inheritances can't be stolen. I used to think trust was a given, something automatic, passed out like a default setting just because someone shared your blood. After Lauren, I stopped thinking that way. I started treating trust like something earned, not in a cold or bitter way, but in a conscious one. I became slower to share details, more observant of people's patterns, especially when money or emotion were involved. I stopped giving people the benefit of the doubt just because we shared a childhood or a last name. I also stopped chasing closeness that wasn't mutual. For years, I'd been the one to keep family group texts alive, organize birthday dinners, reach out just to check in. And for what? So someone could smile at me in public and stab me financially in private? No more. I built new habits instead, with people who showed up because they wanted to, not because they were supposed to. I spent more time with chosen family, coworkers who became real friends, neighbors who noticed when I looked tired and offered a coffee instead of a comment. I also met someone. Her name's Elise. She's quiet but steady. The kind of person who listens more than she speaks, but when she does speak, it matters. I told her about Lauren early on, half expecting her to flinch. Instead, she just nodded and said, "It means you know how to see people now." And she was right. Lauren taught me that not every betrayal has to break you. Some just sharpen you. They show you where the cracks were all along, and help you choose better the next time. Last week, I stood in front of my mom's grave. It wasn't an anniversary or her birthday. It was just a Thursday, cold, a little gray, the kind of day where the world feels honest. I didn't bring flowers, just a folded note in my coat pocket. Inside, I'd written everything I never said when she was alive. How I was angry for a while. Not at her, but at how unprepared I felt. How I wished she'd seen what Lauren would become, or maybe that she had seen it and just hoped for better. But mostly I thanked her, for the kind of love that can't be stolen, for the pieces of herself she left behind in me, in the way I hold people gently but firmly, in the instinct to protect before punishing, in the quiet strength that kept me from burning the whole family bridge down just because I could. I left the note tucked under the edge of a stone, not to be read but to be released. And as I walked away, I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel like a victim. I just felt free. And in that freedom, I realized something I hadn't let myself believe before. What happened with Lauren didn't ruin my family. It redefined it. And sometimes that's the only way you can grow, by letting go of what should have been, and making peace with what is.